It's nice to be here. Stephen, thank you for the invitation. I've certainly enjoyed the first session of papers, and I look forward to the other papers today. So what I want to talk to you about is I've been doing some research with trade unions in developing countries and most recently in South Africa around some of the issues of tax avoidance and tax abuse and what they mean for trade unions. So I want to talk to you just a little bit about some of these issues from perspective of their impacts in South Africa, and I chose a provocative title, which is Killing South Africans in Zurich, London, and Bermuda, the Ethical Horrors of Tax Abuse and Corporate/State Austerity. The paper's posted. It's a very short paper, just tries to make 2 points. So the first point is that strategies of tax abuse have a real impact on citizens in Southern Africa. It inflicts a severe human cost because it simultaneously forces states into austerity, but also it enables corporations to follow austerity policies with regards to their workers. So that's one point. And the second point is that Western financial institutions and regulators bear considerable responsibility for the premature deaths of people in other countries, because the system, of course, is global, but it's based in Western financial centers. So the first section of the paper talks about state and corporate austerity in Southern Africa. It's not controversial that tax abuse deprives developing countries of badly needed tax revenue. The continent of Africa loses billions of dollars in revenue annually. Some of this is illegal, so the high-level panel set up by the African Union has estimated that illicit financial flows out of Africa is around $50 billion a year. But many of the other flows, of course, are legal. So in countries, developing countries like South Africa that are reliant on export of resources, one of the big problems is transfer pricing within multinationals, where they can do this a number of ways. They can charge very large fees for intangible services, so legal services, marketing services. In the extractive sector, they set long-term contracts with resource producers at very low prices. There's also the transit trade, where goods are sold on stock exchanges in second countries before being shipped to third countries. And so that's why Zurich is in the title of my presentation, because Switzerland, although it actually doesn't produce many commodities, has become one of the largest commodity exporter in the world. So it just reroutes resources through Switzerland so that they minimize the tax that has to be paid. The exact amount of money is difficult to determine. In 2008, Christian Aid produced a report that estimated the money at $160 billion annually, which is avoiding tax. So that's more than the amount of aid flowing to developing countries. So in the case of Africa, Africa becomes a net exporter of capital. To use another way of calculating it, instead of talking about $160 billion, Christian Aid figures that out to be the cost of about 1,000 children dying each day. If we look at South Africa and its attempts at development since 1990, one of the measures we can use is a Human Development Index, which measures life expectancy, years of schooling, gross national income. Some of the figures are in the paper, but I think what's really the important part is that since 1990, there's been very, very little progress in the increase in human development in states like South Africa. We were talking about austerity. So in February 2016, South Africa introduced an austerity budget, a crisis budget, when on the one hand it was facing the effects of drought, electricity shortages, high unemployment, and social unrest. On the other hand, it was in danger of having its debt downgraded to junk status. So the government introduced an austerity budget, and I'll just give a quote from the finance minister, which I'm sure you could drop into many finance ministers around the world. He said, "We cannot spend money we do not have. We cannot borrow beyond our ability to repay. Until we ignite growth and generate more revenue, we have to be tough on ourselves." So it kind of has it backwards there, right? That you have to be tough until you ignite growth, but you can't ignite growth if you're not spending money. The second part of the paper talks a little bit more about this notion of corporate austerity. I think oftentimes we talk about state austerity. And what I wanted to talk about was something that happened in August of 2012 in South Africa, which is called the Marikana Massacre. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but that was essentially when 34 trade unionists were killed by South African police around a wildcat strike. Now, the event itself is quite complicated in that it featured police brutality, corporate intransigence, worker infighting between different unions, political intrigue with the government, and a breakdown of the South African industrial relations system. But what's interesting, I think, for our purposes is that the mine where the wildcat strike took place was owned by a company called Longman PLC. Longman mines platinum. If you're interested, platinum sells for about $900 an ounce. So it's a little bit cheaper than gold and a lot more expensive than silver. Its headquarters are registered in London, although its effective headquarters is in South Africa. What's interesting about Longman is that subsequent investigations have revealed it's engaged extensively in transfer pricing with its operations in Bermuda and London, paying large sales commissions to its Bermuda subsidiary and equally large management fees to its subsidiary in London called Longman Management Services. So what's been revealed in the subsequent analysis is that the company had more than enough money to settle with the strikers who were killed that day, if you look at the transfer pricing that they were engaged in. Now, there may have been reasons why they might not have wanted to settle with the workers, but certainly the excuse of affordability vanishes when you look at the tax abuse and tax evasion they were engaged in. So from a South African perspective, they're really caught in what I would call a double austerity bind or a double austerity squeeze. On the one hand, there's a corporate austerity in which money is removed from the workforce and from local communities, and then there's also the government austerity. So that's the first picture up on the slide, that those crosses mark where the workers were killed. And the second picture is a picture of a novelist by the name of Roberto Saviano. Actually, he's an investigative journalist. And for the last 10 years, he has been accompanied by a security detail wherever he goes. And that's because he wrote a book on the Naples Mafia. And last May, he was speaking in the UK at a literary festival. And this is what he said. If I asked, what is the most corrupt place on earth, you might say it's Afghanistan, maybe Greece, Nigeria, the south of Italy. I would say it's the UK. It's not the UK bureaucracy, police, or politics, but what is corrupt is the financial capital. 90% of the owners of capital in London have their headquarters offshore. Jersey and the Cayman Islands are the access gates to criminal capital in Europe. The UK is the country that allows it. So what he was making the case for was that of widespread corruption in the financial industry. And I know we have some people here working on tax issues, but I will just quote the Tax Justice Network and their Financial Secrecy Index, which ranks jurisdictions according to their secrecy and the scale of their financial activities. And at the top of that, we have Switzerland, Hong Kong, the United States, and Singapore. But if we combine the UK with its offshore dependencies, the UK moves from 15th place to first place on that list of financial secrecy. So South Africa did not create the world of tax havens, which facilitates corporate and individual tax abuse. That honor goes to the developed world, to the United States, the United Kingdom. But I'd argue also Canada plays a role when it facilitates tax abuse by its citizens and its corporations. So taking action against tax abuse is part of the global campaign to end arrangements which promote government and corporate austerity around the world. So I've just given you the example of some of the kind of effects that it has on a place like South Africa. So my argument would be that actions taken in Zurich, London, Bermuda, and Ottawa have a direct impact on lives in other parts of the world. And just to return to the author I was quoting earlier, Saviano, he concluded his talk by saying, "That's why it's important, why it's so crucial for me to talk to you, because I want to say, this is about you, this is about your life, and this is about your government." So thank you very much.